their authenticated users, when they log into the View security server, they're then presented with all of the VMs that they have access to for those lab images, and they can work from on campus, in their dorm, from their off-campus apartment, or remote colleges. One of the colleges in New Hampshire that's doing it, Southern New Hampshire University, they just started an online school a year ago, and part of the problem is that their online students are all over the world and they don't have access to the labs. So we're in the process of expanding their View install to take those lab images and have them open for the entire campus all across the world. So remote distance learning students from the other side of the country or Europe or Asia or wherever are connecting through this open security server to these desktop images, logging in, saving all of their data in their home directories, as their students, and they're just getting the screen information back and forth. If they have to, they can save stuff down to a USB locally. They can print locally. That's fine. It doesn't matter. But all of the operating systems, all of the software, everything is kept right in-house. They don't ship anything to the students. They just get access to what's available right there, here and there.
It's certainly one of the things that has come up most recently with, we all know that intellectual property is the foundation of many organizations, and some under very strict regulatory requirements, and that is the EDI infrastructure and using VMware View has been very applicable to those scenarios.
I was curious if the security server handles multi-factor authentication.
It does. It will tunnel that through because it is simply, it has that Atom database to make sure that you are on the list, and the authentication actually is tunneled into the View server itself. So you can have a two-factor, multi-factor, whatever. Yep, and as long as it's compatible here at the end client. This is where, the end client is where you need to make decisions for deployment. So if you have an RSA, a smart card reader, whatever, if you go the zero client route, chances are you won't be able to do that because zero clients do nothing but boot into basically the View client. And you can put the where do I log into, point them in that direction, that's it. So they are very dumb in a good manner, because if you lose one, somebody takes one, there's nothing there. You just plug a new one in and that's it. You would have to go with probably a thin client, which actually has a read-only OS basically built in. It used to be XP embedded, I think it's whatever the next version is, it's in there. Or Linux, where you can actually install the reader drivers or software in there so they will understand what you're actually plugging in and using. Or you use a full desktop with the client or whatever, so you had to set there. And then it would pass those two factors through that tunnel, authenticate them here and let them go. Yeah, this is actually being done right now. Actually, I was talking with one of the engineers that designed some of the systems that are on the ground in Iraq and Afghanistan, where they have laptops and stuff in the Humvees. Well, there's no OS on those. Those are all thin clients that are going back to the base or whatever. So they have fully connected, but there's nothing on them except authentication information. It's just all going back. So very cool stuff. And the guy is like scary smart. His propeller is like physically implanted on the campus.
One of the interesting things too about that is that View and VDI in general has had a tendency to collapse the data center, to consolidate the data center. If you have a scenario where you have some branch offices, it may have been typical to have a file server, maybe a domain controller or two there, and a print server and things of that sort. But when you're thinking about where the data is stored and then where the processing power is that the person wants to get to the data, you realize it's both at the data center. Why would you want to have anything sitting in the branch office, especially when there's corporate assets that you need to maintain and things of that sort? So.
Backups run much smoother if they're all, everything you have to back up is in the data center, as opposed to your branch office 80 miles away, and then you have to worry about backups there, or try to pull things across the LAN, which never work. So if all they're doing is accessing a screen from whatever office or a remote location, it's all safe and secure inside the data center. Yes?
Now, with that, obviously, printing, whether the drivers were there local or not, would still have to live as local if the person's actually going to pick up the piece of paper. So if, especially like a high data amount, like large format printing, we're an engineering firm, so we also have the high graphics, AutoCAD, GIS, things like that. How does that work for like remote office, branch offices where you have smaller pipes, and then what's the user's performance when all of a sudden they send a print and now that's coming back down the pipe to the end user and now choking the bandwidth for the VDI?
That in large format printing or huge print jobs and stuff, that may be a bit of a challenge simply because it is going from A to B, back to A, and then to...
Can the DEM client still host print drivers so that the printing function can be local?
Yes, and that is if you have a thin client that's connecting back, you can have a local print server and connect that, and this is the local printer. So when something prints, it's going to just print locally on that local network. However, because you're connecting to a VM up here, it's going to get rendered. Basically, it's going to get rendered here because all of your work is up here. It will send that job back and through. So in 90% of print functionality, yes. If you're doing huge print jobs with giant files and stuff, you're going to be at the mercy of that bandwidth.
And your skills at allocating QoS.
Well, quality of service issues, and you're looking at small pipes. Check out the Silver Peak guys. They are really good at optimizing the WAN and making things like that happen.
Also shared here recently too, because I came from a software development company, and we had some remote software developers who were working down in Argentina. There were half a dozen of them, and the primary site was in Bellevue. And it was in our best interest to maintain the source code and all of the intellectual property at the primary facility. Now, traditionally, we would have rolled out just RDP over a VPN connection. And that's what we were doing in order to maintain that security and confidentiality. The problem was they were down in Argentina and we were up here. You're incurring a tremendous amount of latency and packet loss. And we all know that that is the combination that will just kill you with regards to effective throughput. When I was rolling out VDI for these software developers, and actually for the organization as a whole, I asked them if they could just try it out, see how it worked. I knew that they were dealing with nearly a 300 millisecond latency. And just to give you an idea, a little bit about how that fits into the realm of things, you might have maybe about a 50 to 60 millisecond latency from here to Southern California, maybe a 90 millisecond latency across the United States, maybe about a 150 millisecond latency to Europe. This was nearly 300 milliseconds. When I had them try it out, that very same day, they said, please don't take it away. It was that much better because, one, they were working with PC over IP, which is a tunable protocol. You can tweak the protocol. And two, there was no traditional VPN that they had to tunnel through. It was fully encrypted because Vue was acting as the connection broker, but it was under a different method, and so they were able to use the combination to have a much more effective work environment. That was.
Question over here, sure.
What about the virus and hacking?
Wireless and hacking.
Virus and hacking. If someone hacked the PC complete server, so everyone will be down.
The Vue server, you can deploy Vue in multiple servers clustered across for availability. And additionally, you can have multiple security servers clustered for availability as well. And that's actually important as you scale out. If you go from 100 desktops in a proof of concept to 500 to 1,000 to 2,000, 10,000, 20,000 user installs out there. It's the same install, you simply just start adding more and more building blocks of Vue and security servers on the front end and back end to handle that load, and it sort of shares everything across. Speaking about scaling and proof of concepts, one of the biggest factors that challenge VDI, virtual desktop, comes from storage. The actual desktop itself is kind of important in virtual desktop, but not near as much as the back-end storage.